Hello everyone and welcome to another video of Humankind here in Square Triangle Mouse. Today we are going to make a tier list of all the cultural wonders in the game so you guys know which ones are better, which ones are worse, which ones you should prioritize, which ones you should almost never build, and of course you might disagree with this opinion, so if you do, there's a comment section and you can say there, why do you think I was wrong or right or whatever. So let's start with the ancient era, and here we have the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and I'm going to put these guys in the A tier. I think the Hanging Gardens are always good. They allow you to have a manufacture way before they come into play in the game. You can only have manufactures after the early modern era when you get the patronage technology, but the Hanging Gardens allow you to have a manufacture in the ancient era. That's way earlier, and the manufacturers, as we all know, are very good. The wondrous effect of a luxury can give you a nice bonus. If it's a gold luxury, it will be, I don't know, 10% extra gold if you have 2 units. 3 units will give you 15% extra gold. If you then trade for a 4th unit, for example, you are already getting 20% extra gold. If it's a food luxury, then it's 20% extra food. Whichever luxury we're talking about is going to be a very nice bonus that you can get very early with the Hanging Gardens, so I consider them to be a very good wonder. Now we'll go with the Pyramids of Giza, and this is my favorite cultural wonder from the ancient era, so I'm going to put it up here as always great. Honestly, there might be some debate here because, let's face it, the Hanging Gardens are also pretty great, but I think the Pyramids of Giza are a little bit better with the minus 25% on district industry cost, because in most games you are going to be building a large number of districts, and if you can build the pyramids as early as the ancient era, that means you're going to be saving a lot of production time. The only exception to this would be if you're trying to do a speed run on high difficulty. If you want to win in less than 100 turns on Humankind difficulty or something like that, then you are not going to be building districts because you won't have time for that. But that's a very specific strategy. I think the vast majority of players during the vast majority of their games will not be speed running, and therefore will be getting a lot of profit from the pyramids, and that's why I think they're always great. Now we'll talk about my least favorite wonders from the ancient era, and those are Stonehenge and the Temple of Artemis. Let's start with Stonehenge. I just put it here. Don't build it. Why not? It gives you plus 10 food for every co-religion states. Well, here's the thing. If you're playing on high difficulties, it's going to take you a while to spread your religion to other cultures, to other states. It's going to take you a while to get that plus 10 food, and at that point it's going to be very late in the game, and plus 10 food is not going to be all that much. In the early game it's not going to help you because you're not going to be spreading your religion, at least if you're playing on any more or less high difficulty. On lower difficulties you can build it if you want, that's fine, because on lower difficulties pretty much anything wins. So if you are playing a very relaxed game on a low difficulty and you want to build Stonehenge, by all means go ahead and do it. But if you are optimizing to move your game up to the highest difficulties, then I would very much not build Stonehenge. The extra stability, you can get it through other means, which are usually better, and the extra food is not going to be so much by the time you can actually get it. The other ancient wonder that I do not like is the Temple of Artemis, so I'm going to give it another D. And the problem with the Temple of Artemis is that extra health regeneration is actually not something you're going to need all that much. If you can wait for your units to heal, then you're doing good enough in the war and you don't need that extra 10 health regeneration. And if you cannot wait, you're just going to be using money to heal your unit, so again you're not going to be using the extra 10 regeneration. You get 40 stability with these two guys instead of the 20 that the pyramids give you, instead of the 20 that the Hanging Gardens give you. So I think they did this 40 because they wanted to improve these wonders a little bit, but the thing is, there are other ways to get stability that are usually cheaper than building these wonders, and in the ancient era you're not going to have so much time to build so many wonders. So if you're going to really invest that time and that production as early as the ancient era, you should go for the good ones, you should not go for the bad ones. It also gives you plus 20 faith. This guy also gives you plus 20 faith. That could be a little bit better to have the religious tenets a little bit earlier, but again, there are easier ways to get the extra faith. You can get the holy site in the ancient era, the first one. You can later on get districts that count as holy sites. So overall, it's not so important to get the plus 20 faith that these guys are giving you. In the ancient era, you're going to have very little production and a lot of priorities. So that's why they're here. Like if you had extra production, if you had a lot of time to build anything you want, then they could be here, or maybe even here. But the thing is, in the ancient era, you have to really prioritize. And that's why I don't like building these two. We go now into the classical era, and I will start with the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. And I'm going to just give it a bad score. It's going to be down here. It gives you a nice amount of faith and 40 stability. But I said previously with these two, there are cheaper ways to get faith. There are cheaper ways or better ways to get stability, like trading for luxuries, for example, is much better than building wonders for stability. So that's why I don't recommend building it. You probably don't have it anyway, because there was a very specific event that you had to play to get it. I don't know if you can get it right now if you don't already have it. If you do have it, just don't build it. Then we're going to talk about the Colossus of Rhodes. It has the doubtful honor of being the worst wonder in the entire game. Even if this could be built by one city with one turn of production, I would still not build it. The Colossus is just 100% useless. Who cares if militia are not lost over time during sieges? You are never going to wait a siege. First of all, you don't want the AI attacking you. You don't want to be on the defensive side. But if you are going to try to bring armies as quickly as possible and then do a sortie. Okay, you are not going to be waiting many turns on sieges. For you to lose militia in a siege, the AI has to maintain the siege for several turns, and you are never going to be waiting that long. So this is just completely useless. They need to 100% redo the Colossus of Rhodes. They need to give it a completely different bonus, because right now there is no reason to ever build the Colossus of Rhodes. Now we go with the Lighthouse of Alexandria, and we are going to give it a B. This wonder is usually okay. Of course, you are going to move it to D if you play on a Pangea map, but I would usually not recommend playing Humankind on Pangea maps because it can get a little bit more boring. The vision range is nice to explore a bit faster, but more importantly, the extra movement on naval transports is going to allow you to explore much faster. It comes early, it comes in the classical era, so you might end up getting to the islands in the middle of the ocean before the AI does, which will allow you to get those territories before everyone else, and that's usually very nice. Now we go with the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, and this guy is going to be actually very high for me, so high that I'm going to say it's always great. Probably my favorite wonder of the classical era, the only one I systematically try to build myself. The AI tends to not prioritize it, which is very nice. It gives you +2 science per district on city or outpost. This means all of your districts are going to be giving you +2 science, and that's very nice because the scientific districts in this game arrive a little bit late. It might take you a while, and maybe in the classical era you are in the middle of wars and you are prioritizing the building of units, and so you don't want to build so many scientific districts, and the mausoleum will compensate for that, and that's why I consider this wonder to be always great and my favorite one of this era. For the statue of Zeus, we are going to have a C. I consider it mediocre. Gives you some faith, some stability, but also something else that these guys here don't give you. Okay, these three guys gave you only faith and stability. The statue of Zeus gives you something else, +5% money per alliance on empire. The problem with this is that early on in the game you're going to be conquering usually a lot, so you're not going to be able to maintain alliances for very long, but maybe you can maintain 1 or 2 with cultures that are located in another continent, so you're not conquering them yet, and so maybe you can have an extra 5% goal or an extra 10% goal if you can maintain 2 alliances. The thing is, in this game it usually pays off to be very aggressive. That's why having bonuses per alliance is not so great, and that's why I'm putting the statue of Zeus here. Finally, we reach the Pyramid of the Sun. This one comes with the DLC, so you might not have it. In any case, if you do have it, keep in mind it's not so great. It gives you stability and faith, just like these guys, and something else. That's why I give it 1 grade higher. and this is the +2 food on territories, districts and exploitation. This only affects the territory in which the wonder is built, so it's not so much, but it can give you a city with a bunch of food. If you manage to combine that later on with Angkor Wat, it could be interesting. The problem is, at this point in the game, you don't know if you're going to be getting Angkor Wat, so you cannot risk it all to that card, let's say. So that's why I think it's mediocre. We enter now the medieval era, and we are going to start with Angkor Wat, and I'm going to put it right here. I think Angkor Wat is honestly just a very nice wonder. Angkor Wat gives you +1 food per faith. This is very interesting because after you get the 4th tenet of your religion, having more faith points becomes a little bit useless, but you will keep generating them. With Angkor Wat, those extra faith points are going to continue to give you a bonus, and actually a very nice one, which is having +1 food per each faith point. Angkor Wat itself gives you 20 faith, which is immediately also 20 food. Also, if you get Angkor Wat, suddenly these wonders here become a little bit better. I still put them down here because they come before Angkor Wat, so when you have the chance to build them, you never know if you're actually going to be able to get Angkor Wat. So Angkor Wat is a nice wonder, and it's also a wonder that make other wonders better, which is very, very nice. The only reason I don't give it an S is because you will have many ways of getting extra food in this game. Angkor Wat is not the only way to get a ton of food in this game, but overall it's a very good wonder, and I recommend that if you have the chance, you build it. Unfortunately, the AI has a tendency to build it, so if you don't get to the medieval era quickly, you might lose your chance. The Forbidden City will go down here, another one of the wonders that I never build. Again, we are talking here about prioritizing, about strategies for high difficulty levels. That's why you are going to see several wonders here that I just never build. You are going to be prioritizing your production for the important stuff only in higher difficulties, and the Forbidden City cannot be considered important stuff. It only gives you +25 war support increase when going to war, but there are many ways to get war support. Overall, I never struggled to get war support. If you play the war correctly, you are going to be getting a lot of extra war support by just winning battles, so you are pretty much never going to need the extra 25 that the Forbidden City gives you. The Great Mosque of the End comes with the DLC. If you don't have that DLC, don't worry much about it. It's not an awesome wonder. It's not completely terrible, but you can skip it most of your games. Gives you +40 stability and some faith to compensate for how bad it is. It's just a 5% extra fame on Empire, and you might think initially this is good because fame is the only way to win the game, and so having an extra 5% is always good. The problem is this comes around the mid-game. Let's say at that point you might have, I don't know, maybe another 10,000 fame points to win. If you get another 10,000 points after this, then you're going to be getting an additional 500. The percentage is just very low, and it's usually not going to be decisive. Great Zimbabwe is another wonder that comes with a DLC, and this one is actually very nice. It gives you +2% money per number of unique types of resources available on Empire. The thing is, you're going to have a lot of unique resources available on your Empire, so this could be maybe 20% gold, maybe even more. So it's going to be a lot of extra gold that you're going to be getting thanks to Great Zimbabwe, which means merchant stars, which means gold to upgrade your units, gold to speed up your production. Gold is good for a bunch of things in this game. And then we have Notre Dame, which will come right here in the mediocre line. Now Notre Dame is a similar wonder to these three here, one of those wonders that give you extra faith and therefore you should usually not build. The main difference is that Notre Dame comes in the same era as Angkor Wat, which, as we mentioned before, gives you more food per faith. So maybe you start the medieval era, you prioritize Angkor Wat, you finish it, and then you can build a second wonder. If that's the case, then suddenly Notre Dame becomes a lot better. When you build these guys here, you don't know if you're going to be able to build Angkor Wat. Maybe you build these guys hoping to make them good with Angkor Wat, and then the AI gets Angkor Wat before you do, and then these guys become very, very poor, very mediocre, just a waste of production basically. But with Notre Dame you can wait. You can start with Angkor Wat in the medieval era, and then get Notre Dame as a second wonder, and that could be useful. That's why I'm putting Notre Dame here one step above these three. Finally, we have Todaiji, and it's going to go down here in the don't build it category. It says plus 20% extra turns before being converted by others' religion, so you're going to keep your religion in your city for a little bit longer, but the thing is, you don't want to be losing your religious influence at all, if you have a religion of your own, of course, and so you are going to want to push your religion into other cultures and not the other way around. If you are already losing your religious pressure, it means you're already doing bad in that regard, and delaying the conversion a little bit is not going to be a game changer in any way. So Todaiji is just basically nothing. If the Colossus wasn't there, I would say Todaiji is definitely the worst wonder in the game. We go now into the early modern era, and we'll begin with Machu Picchu, and Machu Picchu is a very nice wonder. I will put it up here. I really like it. You have to be a little bit smart with it, but it's actually fairly easy to be smart with it, so and everyone should be able to get a lot of profit from it. So you basically do the following thing. You just go to your cities list and you check which city is producing the most amount of food, and you build Machu Picchu there. And then half of that number would be an increase for every other city in your empire. So let's say you have one city producing 60 food, then suddenly all of your other cities get an extra 30. If you have one city producing 100 food, then all of your other cities get a plus 50. The moment you secure Machu Picchu, that city that was already producing a lot of food should be producing more. You are going to prioritize food buildings and food districts in that city, because basically that city alone will be providing food for everyone else in your empire, and this means a great optimization when it comes to food increase. So it's really, really nice. And of course, if you can combine it with Angkor Wat, it's even better, because it means you get more food per faith, and well, it's just a huge amount of food that will give you a ton of population all over the place, and that's just very, very nice. A very nice combination is getting Angkor Wat, then getting Notre Dame for extra faith that becomes extra food, and then in the same city you just put Machu Picchu, and half of that extra food goes to everyone else, and it's just super, super nice to get so much food in your entire empire. Now we get Saint Basil, and Saint Basil unfortunately is another really, really terrible wonder. Once again, we are talking about wonders that give you extra faith, plus one faith per district. It's not even that much faith anyway. If you have Angkor Wat, it could be another combination like this one, but it's worse than this one because you have better options in the early modern. You have Machu Picchu in the early modern, and we are going to talk about another great wonder that you get here. So it's almost never going to be worth it to get Saint Basil. If you have Angkor Wat, maybe a little bit better, but still I wouldn't build it just because I have so many better options in the early modern. And again, we are talking about prioritizing here, so I would very much prefer securing this one, for example, instead of Saint Basil, even if I have Angkor Wat. Having the extra faith in the early modern era is going to be pretty much useless. At this point, you should already be generating enough faith to get your fourth tenet very, very soon, so you're not going to need the extra faith from Saint Basil. Overall, it's just a wonder that I pretty much never build. And another reason why I never build Saint Basil is that not only Machu Picchu is great in the early modern era, but the Taj Mahal is also great. The Taj Mahal gives you plus 50% money on settled city. A settled city is one that has very high stability. If I remember correctly, we are talking about 90 stability at least. The thing is, in the early modern era, you should already have fixed your stability problem, and it should already be fairly easy for you to get 90 stability in all of your main cities, which means all of your main cities are going to be getting the plus 50% money. A little bit later, when you reach industrial, pretty much every one of your cities is going to be settled, so every one of your cities is going to be getting plus 50% money, and that's a lot of money. Plus 50% is going to be huge. At this point in the game, you're going to be producing a very nice amount of gold. 50% is going to be even better than what Great Zimbabwe is giving you at this point in the game, so it's going to be very, very nice. It's going to be a lot of gold, and you're going to be very, very happy with it. So yeah, build this too. That's why Saint Basil is just so bad compared to those two. If somehow you lost the two excellent wonders from the early modern era, your last decent option will be the Topkapi Palace. This palace will give you plus 5% industry on city or outpost, and also plus 100% production towards any shared project, national project, holy site, or cultural wonder. You are going to be building more cultural wonders in the late game, so it's going to be useful for that, and you are going to be building some projects in the contemporary era. Usually you are going to go for the space projects, you are going to go for the satellites and so on. So this is going to be useful for that. Overall, a decent wonder without being really great, but still better than Saint Basil's. That's why I pretty much never build this one, because it feels like every other wonder in the early modern era is just better. The industrial era doesn't have so many wonders at the time. Let's see what happens with future DLCs, but for now we only have these three. And Big Ben is a decent one, not awesome, but fairly decent. It gives you plus 5% science per alliance on Empire, plus another 10% science on your capital. If your capital is producing a nice amount of science, which at this point could be the case, then you're going to be getting a nice increase. And also, at this point in the game, because we are talking about the industrial era, we are not going to be conquering so much. That's why I consider this bonus on alliances better than the one the Statue of Zeus is giving you. In the classical era you are going to be conquering a lot, medieval era as well. By the time you reach the industrial era, you probably did most of the conquest you are going to be needing for your game, and you are going to probably have a very strong army, which means the AI is going to be more likely to get an alliance with you because you are very strong and you intimidate them. So you can get more of this extra 5% science per alliance on Empire. Still not an amazing bonus, but a pretty decent one. The Eiffel Tower, in my humble opinion, is a little bit better than the Big Ben. Gives you plus 1 industry per population on all cities, and at this point in the game pretty much all of your cities will have a nice amount of population. That's why this bonus should be fairly decent. If you're still conquering, you're going to be producing some very expensive units at this point in the game, so you are going to be needing some nice production, and that's why this extra production is going to be so nice. Otherwise, you may be building some expensive projects, you may be building some expensive wonders in the late game. So some very nice bonus to production in the late game is always going to be useful, and that's why I like the Eiffel Tower. Finally, you get the Statue of Liberty, and that's another very nice one. I'm going to put it here in always good. The reason for that is that you get plus 10 money and plus 10 science for every territory in your sphere of influence. And the thing is, at this point in the game, you should have conquered a lot, and you should have many territories in your sphere of influence. Your influence per turn should be high, which means maybe you have a whole continent in your sphere of influence, plus several islands. We should be talking about at least 20 territories at this point in the game, so at least 200 extra gold and 200 extra science for just one wonder. And finally we get to the contemporary era that has some very nice wonders, but usually you can't build all 4 of them, so we will have to prioritize. When the time comes to prioritize the contemporary era wonders, Christ the Redeemer is probably going to be one of the ones you want to build, and it gives you plus 10% money, plus 10% industry, and plus 10% food in every city. The only thing you are not getting extra is science, but apart from that you get a little bit of everything, as the song goes. So yeah, it's a very nice wonder, and I usually build it in my games. I don't think I need to explain to you why 10% extra money, industry and food in every single city is a good thing, so I will just go to the next wonder. The Empire State Building is going to go here in usually okay. It's just a little bit worse, I think, than the Christ the Redeemer. The Empire State Building gives you plus 20% money generated from ongoing trade on all cities. You should have a nice amount of trade at this point in the game because you probably conquered most of what you want. You should have some trade routes that are active at this point in the game, so the extra 20% gold is nice. but it doesn't give you any production, it doesn't give you any food. That's why I think that Christ the Redeemer is better than the Empire State. If you have the Latin American DLC, you have the Maracanã Stadium, and that one goes here as well. The main use for the Maracanã Stadium is getting the influence fame stars, so the Steed era stars, a little bit faster, because you have an event that comes with the Maracanã Stadium. Every few turns the event will appear and you will have to decide whether you want money, influence or stability. You're pretty much never going to pick stability. You're usually going to pick influence because it gives you a 10% increase in influence, which will allow you to get those late game stars a lot faster. Apart from that, it doesn't have so many uses. That's why I always say it's usually okay. Definitely not a huge priority unless you're playing the contemporary era with an aesthetic culture. Then those stars are going to be worth a little bit more, and then you will want to prioritize the Maracanã Stadium a little bit more. And we leave the best one for last. The Sydney Opera House, in my opinion, goes up here. I consider it to be the best wonder in the contemporary era. It gives you unsettled city only, plus 10% money, industry, food and science. So you have one more resource than Christ the Redeemer. This one is only on settled cities, but you add the science, which makes it better. Why is it better? Because at this point in the game, really all of your cities should be settled. In the late game, you should have no stability issues whatsoever. You should be doing very, very well in stability. If you are not doing very well in stability, there are many things in your strategy that are wrong, and you should check those ones before checking wonders. But pretty much all of your cities should be settled at this point in the game, which means the bonus here should apply to every city, and it includes the science, apart from the stuff that was already included with Christ the Redeemer. That's why this one is a little bit better than Christ the Redeemer. And that's it. This is my final chart for the wonders in this game. Of course, that could be some disagreements that you have. I will accept your comments and I will hear them, and I might reply here or there. Although if you think the Colossus of Rhodes is good, okay, we're going to be disagreeing a lot. But otherwise, there could be debate for almost everything, really. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Let me know in the comments with positions you could change and why. As usual, please remember to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel, it really helps a lot. This is a growing channel, so it really helps when you guys hit the like button. And apart from that, I can only say thank you very much for watching.